My boyfriend thinks I'm disgusting because I sit on public toilet seats. I'm 27 and apparently I just discovered that my bathroom habits are horrifying to other people. Whenever I use a public restroom, if the toilet seat looks clean, I sit down normally to pee. If there's a little water or urine on the seat, I wipe it off with toilet paper first and then sit down. That has always seemed completely normal to me. I've never thought twice about it because I am not sitting in filth. I only sit if the seat looks clean after checking it or wiping it down. Recently, my boyfriend of 3 years found this out because I casually mentioned sitting down to use a portable toilet at an outdoor event. He immediately looked horrified. He started saying it was disgusting that I sit on public toilets and then come home and sleep with him afterward. He compared it to rubbing himself directly on toilet lids and claimed that any time he kisses me intimately afterward, he is basically exposing himself to strangers' bathroom germs. I honestly thought he was exaggerating, but then I asked a couple of friends about it and now I feel like I'm losing my mind because most of them agreed with him. Apparently a lot of people hover over public toilets instead of sitting. The thing is, hovering sounds miserable to me. Also, if the seat is visibly clean, I genuinely do not understand the issue. It is not like I am licking the toilet seat. I'm just sitting on it for 30 seconds like literally every person does at home. My boyfriend now thinks it is weird that I never specifically told him this before, like I was somehow hiding it from him. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here wondering whether I accidentally became the grossest person alive without realizing it. My ex wanted me to change my convention costume because his new girlfriend felt uncomfortable. About 8 months ago, my ex and I ended our relationship on relatively good terms. It was mutual, there was no cheating or huge betrayal, and since we shared the same friend group, we tried to keep things civil. After the breakup, I started focusing more on myself. I got serious about therapy, cleaned up my eating habits, started working out consistently, and generally became more confident than I had been in years. My friends noticed the difference immediately and kept telling me I seemed happier and more comfortable in my own skin. One of my biggest hobbies is cosplay. I've always been really into gaming and conventions, but in the past I mostly chose costumes that hid most of my face or body because I was self-conscious. Over the last year though, I finally felt confident enough to try something more ambitious and fitted. A close friend and I spent nearly 6 months working on matching convention outfits inspired by characters from a popular competitive game. Between sewing, props, makeup desks, and modifications, we poured an insane amount of time and money into them. A few weeks before the convention, I posted a test photo in our group chat asking for opinions on some finishing details. Not long after, my ex messaged me privately asking me not to wear the costume because it would supposedly make his new girlfriend uncomfortable. I was confused because I did not even know she was attending the convention with our group. I asked what specifically about the costume was a problem, but he would not explain. I told him I was sorry if she felt awkward, but I had spent half a year making this costume and was not going to abandon it over someone I had never even met. So I wore it. The convention itself went really well. People kept stopping me for photos, complimenting the costume, and asking questions about how I made parts of it. I mostly stayed away from the larger friend group to avoid drama, but we still crossed paths throughout the day. That is when things got uncomfortable. My ex's new girlfriend kept making passive-aggressive comments toward me whenever people complimented the costume or asked for pictures. She would laugh under her breath, whisper it to people nearby, or make little remarks clearly meant to insult me without directly starting a confrontation. Everyone around us seemed uncomfortable, but nobody wanted to address it. Later that evening, a bunch of us went out to dinner together. At one point, another friend casually asked the new girlfriend whether she had ever considered trying cosplay herself. She responded by saying she did not need strangers giving her attention because she already had a boyfriend and was not desperate. The implication was obvious, especially after the comments all day, and I finally lost my patience. I told her to stop acting bitter and insulting me just because I got attention at the convention. She immediately burst into tears. My ex jumped in and demanded I apologize to her. I said I would apologize when she apologized for spending the entire day making nasty comments toward me first. The argument escalated fast, other people started taking sides, voices got louder, and eventually the restaurant staff told our whole group to leave. Now my ex is threatening to leave the friend group entirely unless I apologize to his girlfriend. Some mutual friends are pressuring me to just say sorry so the group can move on, while others think she deliberately provoked me all day and cannot act shocked that I eventually snap back. At this point, I honestly do not know whether I should stand my ground or just apologize to keep the peace. Am I wrong for wanting 5 minutes alone in the bathroom? My husband and I have 2 kids, including a son who is about 1.5 years old. Lately I feel like I can't even use the bathroom without an audience. Every time I try to go, my son either bangs on the door crying or insists on climbing onto my lap while I'm sitting there. It sounds silly, but after dealing with it constantly, I was desperate for just a few quiet minutes by myself. One morning I asked my husband if he could take us on with him while he drove our older child to school. I figured it would give me a chance to finally use the bathroom in peace. Unfortunately, the timing turned into a disaster. There was traffic everywhere, road closures, and delays that kept them stuck in the car far longer than expected. What should have been a quick trip ended up taking close to an hour, and our son apparently screamed most of the drive. When they finally got home, my husband was furious. He started yelling that it was unfair to our son to be trapped in the car for that long just so I could go to the bathroom alone. According to him, I was selfish for even asking. I got irritated and replied that by his logic, I guess we can never take our son anywhere anymore, because toddlers hate car seats sometimes and complain about being strapped in no matter where you're going. Now he thinks I'm completely unreasonable, while I feel like wanting a few uninterrupted minutes in the bathroom is not some outrageous request. Was I wrong for reporting a teen driver after he hit my car and left? A couple of weeks ago, someone sideswiped my car while driving through my neighborhood. I honked immediately, but instead of pulling over, the other car just kept going. I called the police and filed a report right away. Thankfully, I have a dash camera, so while I could not make out the license plate clearly, I did get a picture of the vehicle itself. I ended up posting the photo in our neighborhood Facebook group, and eventually someone recognized the car and connected me with the family involved. At first, I honestly was willing to keep things simple. The damage was not catastrophic, around $1,500 according to the insurance estimate, and I figured if they'd just paid for the repairs privately, we could all move on. But once we started talking, the family suddenly became evasive. They started questioning whether their car had even hit mine at all, despite the fact that there was video evidence and visible damage. At that point, I decided I did not want to keep arguing back and forth with people who were already trying to deny responsibility. So I gave the driver's information to the police so they could update the report, and then I sent everything to my insurance company. The officer explained that because the original report had already been processed as a driver leaving the scene, it could not simply be rewritten retroactively as a normal exchange of information. Legally, it was still considered a hit and run. That is where things got messy. The driver turned out to be a teenage boy with only a learner's permit, and apparently both of his parents were in the vehicle with him when it happened. According to one of my neighbours, I should have let it go because my car is older and the scratches are not a big deal. She also said I was potentially ruining a teenager's future over a minor accident. The thing is, I never wanted it to escalate this far in the first place. If they had simply stopped after hitting me, or even cooperated afterward instead of trying to deny it happened, none of this would have turned into a police issue. What makes me feel conflicted is that it sounds like the parents were really the ones who failed here. They were the experienced adults in the car, and instead of telling their son to stop and handle the accident properly, they let him drive away. But now the teenager is probably going to deal with the biggest consequences. My partner thinks I did absolutely nothing wrong and that actions have consequences. I still feel a little guilty, though, knowing the kid will probably take the brunt of a situation his parents helped create. Am I wrong for calling my daughter's boyfriends Baskin Robbins? I'm a father in my 40s with 2 children, including my youngest daughter Emma, who is 17. She's a sweet, funny kid with a very romantic, almost fairy tale view of relationships. She really wants an ideal long-term love like she sees in movies, and she wants it right now. My wife and I have a strong, happy marriage, and Emma often compares her expectations to what we have, even though I've tried explaining that it took years of growing up, mistakes, and patience to get here. Over the past couple of years, Emma has gone through a long list of short teenage relationships. Nothing inappropriate, just quick changes from one boyfriend to the next. It's been enough that I've honestly lost track of names. At some point, I made a joke to my wife that I wasn't even going to try anymore and would just call them Baskin Robbins because it feels like a different flavour every few weeks. I never said this to Emma directly. It was just a private joke and frustration, not meant to insult her or reduce her to anything negative. I love her and I'm proud of who she is. I just find the constant turnover a bit overwhelming to keep up with. The issue came up when I mentioned the joke to a friend, and she got upset, saying it made my daughter sound like she's being disrespected or treated like a joke. That reaction surprised me because I didn't see it that way at all. I thought I was just commenting on how fast teenage relationships can change. Now I'm wondering if I'm misreading how that comes across. Am I wrong for thinking of it as harmless humour? My boyfriend thinks I'm selfish for scheduling surgery during his recovery. Over the past several years, I worked incredibly hard to lose around 120 pounds. Reaching my target weight felt amazing, but the aftermath has been rough. I have a lot of excess skin now, and it has caused constant irritation. I deal with painful rashes, sores, and skin infections from the friction, especially during warmer weather or when I am active for long periods. For a long time, I talked with my boyfriend about eventually getting surgery to remove the loose skin, but I wanted to wait until I was fully done losing weight before spending the money or going through a major recovery. A few months ago, my boyfriend decided he wanted corrective eye surgery for his crossed eye. It would help with his vision and depth perception, and I fully supported him because I know it has affected his confidence and daily life for years. The problem started when I finally got the opportunity to schedule my own surgery. We both work in education, so summer break is really the only realistic time either of us can recover from a major procedure without risking our jobs or using an impossible amount of leave time. Recently my skin problems became much worse, and my surgeon had an opening available at the beginning of June. Timing-wise, it honestly seemed perfect because I would have the entire summer to heal before returning to work. When I told my boyfriend I wanted to book it, he got upset immediately. He said I was being inconsiderate because his surgery is happening during the same month, and he thinks it is selfish for both of us to be recovering at once. What confuses me is that I never expected him to delay or cancel his procedure for me. I also made arrangements for my cousin to stay with us temporarily and help out while we both recover so neither of us would be overwhelmed. From my perspective, we both have legitimate medical issues that impact our quality of life, and we are both trying to use the only recovery window available to us. But he keeps acting like I deliberately planned this at the worst possible time for him, and now I am wondering if I really am being unfair by going ahead with it anyway. Was I wrong for losing weight after my husband's family kept insisting I would gain weight after moving overseas? I'm 24 and moved to another country with my husband, who is 29, about a year ago. Before we moved, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law constantly made comments about how I was definitely going to gain weight once I got there. It wasn't just an occasional joke either. Almost every conversation included something like, "Everyone gains weight after moving here. You should probably buy larger clothes before you come. You'll see, you won't stay skinny for long." At first I laughed it off and said I planned to stay active and keep eating normally, but they acted like weight gain was unavoidable. To be fair, during the first few months after moving, I did gain some weight. Between stress, adjusting to a new country, eating out more often, and being out of my normal routine, I put on around 15 pounds. Eventually, I started feeling uncomfortable physically and decided I wanted to make some changes for myself. Over time, I started cooking more at home, walking regularly, and paying more attention to my habits. In total, I ended up losing over 30 pounds. I'll admit part of my motivation was wanting to prove my in-laws wrong after hearing so many comments about my body. Their remarks genuinely got under my skin. Now the situation has flipped. My mother-in-law keeps saying I am too skinny and making comments that people will think my husband doesn't feed me properly or that he's somehow neglecting me. Meanwhile, my husband has been supportive the entire time and keeps telling me he only cares that I'm healthy and happy. For context, I'm not underweight or doing anything extreme. I'm a healthy weight for my height and I eat normally. Still, I'm starting to wonder whether I let the comments affect me too much emotionally. Part of me feels proud that I reached my goals, but another part wonders if making it into a point of pride against them was petty. Was I wrong for caring so much about proving them wrong? Was I wrong for sending my rental host a full damage walkthrough video before unpacking? I recently checked into a short-term vacation rental with my girlfriend. Before we unpacked or touched anything, I walked through the entire place with my phone camera recording. I slowly filmed every room and pointed out any scratches, stains, dents, or other issues I noticed while narrating the video with timestamps. Last year, I had a really bad experience where a different rental host charged me several $100s for damage that already existed before I arrived. I had no proof, and the platform sided with the host, so ever since then I've been extra cautious. After finishing the walkthrough, I sent the video to the host along with a polite message basically saying, just documenting a few pre-existing issues before my stay so there's no confusion later. The host responded almost immediately and seemed offended. They said the video was incredibly insulting, that no guest had ever done something like that before, and that I was treating them like they were dishonest. My girlfriend thinks I escalated things unnecessarily and says recording and sending a 4-minute inspection video made me come across as paranoid and difficult before the stay even really began. On the other hand, a couple of my friends think it was completely reasonable considering I've already been burnt once over false damage claims. Now I'm wondering if I handled it badly. I genuinely wasn't trying to accuse the host of anything, I just wanted documentation in case there was ever a dispute later. Was I wrong for handling all the night feedings without telling my wife? When my daughter was born, she went through the normal newborn phase of waking up crying several times a night. Her mother had a very difficult pregnancy and was exhausted most of the time afterward. I have always been a light sleeper, so whenever the baby cried, I would usually wake up first to handle it myself. Most nights I would take care of everything quietly. I would warm a bottle, change diapers, rock the baby back to sleep, whatever needed to be done. I never really kept score or thought much about it. I assumed there were also nights when her mother woke up before I did, so I figured things naturally balanced out over time. One night we were out with friends and the conversation turned to parenting. My wife started talking about how lucky we were because the baby mostly slept through the night and how she rarely ever had to get up with her. I did not want to embarrass her in front of everyone, so I stayed quiet. But once we got home, I gently mentioned that the reason she rarely woke up was because I had been getting up with the baby most nights. That conversation exploded immediately. She became extremely upset and accused me of taking important experiences away from her as a mother. She said that because I never woke her up, her body never learned to respond to the baby crying during the night. In her mind, I had stolen those maternal responsibilities from her. Honestly, I never viewed it as a mother's job or a father's job. I just saw it as parenting. Our baby needed care. I was awake, so I handled it. I genuinely thought I was helping both my daughter and her mother by letting her rest after such a rough pregnancy. For more context, both of us were working at the time, and I was regularly doing long shifts 6 days a week while surviving on very little sleep. We barely had time to communicate properly outside of basic survival mode conversations. We also used an app to log feedings and diaper changes, so I assumed she could see how often I was up with the baby if she checked it. Apparently she was not really looking at it, and we both failed badly at communicating about what was happening. The argument itself happened months ago, and our daughter is older now and thankfully sleeping much better. But her mother still brings it up to family and friends as an example of something terrible I did to her, and now I genuinely do not know if I crossed a line by handling things the way I did. I never meant to exclude her. I just wanted to take care of my daughter and let her mother get some sleep. Was I wrong for refusing to bring my children back early to my ex-wife during my parenting weekend? My ex-wife, Melissa, and I divorced last year. We have 2 children together, ages 10 and 7. Right now she has primary custody, and I get the children 2 weekends a month plus some extra time during holidays and summer breaks. I've been trying to get more custody time, but one of the biggest obstacles is that I currently live too far from the school district, so I'm working on relocating closer. This past weekend I had the children with me and took them to visit my parents at their lake house. We spent most of Saturday out on the water fishing, tubing, and just enjoying time together. Later that evening, my ex-wife texted asking if we could talk. When I called her, she said she was having a difficult emotional day and asked if she could speak with the children for a little while. Of course I said yes. After a few minutes the children handed the phone back to me because she wanted to continue talking. That's when she asked if I would bring the children back to her early for the rest of the weekend because she missed them and wanted them with her. I told her no. I explained that this was my scheduled parenting time and I intended to keep it. I also asked what was going on because she normally only contacts me during my weekends with the children for logistical reasons. Eventually she admitted she had been supposed to go on a date that night, but the man cancelled or stopped responding, and now she was upset and lonely. She then said she had already asked the children whether they wanted to come home early and claimed they were okay with it. That really bothered me because it felt manipulative to involve them in an adult issue before even discussing it properly with me. I told her I was not giving up part of my already limited time with the children just because her evening plans fell apart. I also reminded her that she gets far more time with them overall, while I have to fight for every extra hour I can get. She accused me of being selfish and said if the children wanted to return early, I should allow it. I told her the custody schedule is an adult responsibility, not a decision for the children to make in the moment, and that I would return them at the normal agreed upon time. The rest of the weekend went fine. The kids and I spent more time at the lake and had a great visit. But afterwards she continued sending messages calling me cruel and acting cold toward me during the Monday drop-off. Part of me understands that she was emotional and hurt after being stood up, but another part of me feels like she was trying to use the children to comfort herself during my parenting time, and I don't think that's fair. Was I wrong for asking my homeschooled nephew questions about what he was learning? My nephew is in 6th grade and has been homeschooled by my sister since the start of the school year. She pulled him out of school because she felt the local schools were not teaching enough and that she could give him a better education at home. His older sister still attends regular high school. I have always been close with my sister and her children, and I work as a math tutor, so education naturally interests me. Yesterday I was visiting their house and casually asked my nephew how homeschooling was going. He said it was going well, so I asked him what they had most recently covered in math. He struggled to explain it. He could not really remember the topic name or give an example problem. At that point my sister stepped in and explained what they had been working on. Since the school year is almost over, I mentioned a few math topics that are normally introduced around 6th grade and asked whether he had learned those yet. My sister replied that they were working at their own pace. I dropped the subject after that, but privately I was a little surprised. A few years ago, he seemed very advanced for his age, especially with mental math. My sister used to encourage me to ask him questions because he enjoyed answering them quickly. I know that being good at mental math does not automatically translate to being advanced in every area, but it still caught me off guard that he seemed unsure about basic curriculum questions. Apparently afterward my sister told our mother that she felt I was acting judgmental and making her son uncomfortable. She said I was basically quizzing him and implying she was failing at homeschooling. She also pointed out that I am not a parent and do not understand how difficult it is to balance teaching, parenting, and running a household at the same time. When my mother brought this up to me, I explained that I genuinely was not trying to embarrass anyone. I was curious because of my background in tutoring, not because I was trying to test him or criticize her choices. Still, I ended up telling my mother that my sister probably knows what's best for her own son and that maybe I should not have asked so many questions. Now I'm wondering whether I cross a line without realizing it. I thought it was a normal conversation about school, but maybe it came across more like an interrogation than I intended. Was I wrong for refusing to pay my stepdaughter's graduate school tuition? I am 48 and have been married to my husband for several years. He has a 22-year-old daughter from his first marriage. From the beginning, she made it clear she did not want a close relationship with me, and I respected that completely. I never tried to replace her mother or force any kind of parental role. I stayed polite, supportive from a distance, and tried not to overstep. Our relationship has always been civil but emotionally distant. Recently, she got accepted into graduate school. My husband had been saving money for years specifically to help with her education, but the amount he saved was based on the cost of a local university. Instead, she applied to a much more expensive program and was accepted there. The tuition is roughly double what he had planned for. When my husband explained that he simply could not afford the full amount, she did not really seem concerned about the financial reality of it. Meanwhile, my husband became increasingly stressed trying to figure out how to cover the difference. I have inheritance money that I have always kept separate from our share finances. My husband and I had previously agreed that this money would eventually go toward buying a house together. At one point, he asked whether I would consider using part of it to cover the tuition gap for his daughter. I told him no. I did not think it was my responsibility, especially given that we had always treated that money as separate and untouchable. I did agree to think about it further because I could see how overwhelmed he was, but I never promised anything. Apparently, my sister-in-law somehow got the impression that I had agreed to pay. Without checking with me, she told my stepdaughter that I would be covering the tuition. A couple of days later, my stepdaughter suddenly called me sounding warmer and friendlier than she ever has before. She thanked me repeatedly for helping with her future. I was completely confused and had to tell her there had been a misunderstanding because I was not paying for the school. The mood changed instantly. She became angry and accused me of never caring about her future. She said I was selfish for hoarding money while she struggled with tuition costs. She even implied I was trying to control her with money. After years of emotional distance from her, it felt shocking that the first time she acted affectionate toward me was when she thought I was funding her education. I eventually lost my patience and called her entitled. Since then, my husband has technically said he understands my decision, but he has become very quiet and withdrawn. I can tell he wishes I would just give in to avoid conflict. Now I feel like I have somehow become the villain in a situation I never created. I never offered the money, yet everyone seems upset with me for refusing to hand it over once the expectation existed. I told my father his girlfriend could not come to my graduation trip after my mother paid for everything. I am graduating from university in a couple of weeks, and what should have been a happy milestone has somehow turned into a huge family argument. My parents divorced when I was 11. Growing up, my mother was a dependable parent. She worked constantly, handled school paperwork, drove me to every activity, helped me through mental breakdowns during college, and somehow always found a way to support me emotionally even when she was exhausted herself. My father loves me, but he has always been more of a show-up when it's convenient type of parent. If attending something required sacrifice or effort, there was usually an excuse. My graduation is being held several hours away from where my family lives, and graduates only receive 4 guest tickets. I chose my mother, my younger brother, my grandmother, and my father. My grandmother practically helped raise me while my mother was struggling financially after the divorce, so there was never any question about her being invited. Months ago, my mother booked an Airbnb for herself, my brother, my grandmother, and me. She also covered the rental car, fuel, and most of the travel costs because my brother and grandmother could not really afford the trip otherwise. My father originally planned to drive separately and stay in a cheap motel nearby. Then, about a month ago, he told me money was tight and he might not be able to attend after all. I acted understanding, but honestly it hurt. Even after everything between them, my mother quietly offered to pay for one of his hotel nights so he could still be there for my graduation. She literally said, "You deserve to have both your parents there." Last week my father called sounding excited and casually announced that his girlfriend, Melanie, would be joining him for the trip because she managed to get the weekend off work. They've only been dating around 8 months. I have met her twice. During my younger brother's birthday dinner a while back, she jokingly referred to herself as his new bonus mom, and my brother looked deeply uncomfortable the entire time. When my father said she was coming, I asked what exactly he meant. He said she would come to dinner, take pictures with everyone, and stay at the Airbnb. He added that she could just sleep on the couch. That is where I got upset. I told him the issue was not the couch itself. The issue was that my mother paid for this entire trip so he could attend his daughter's graduation, not so he could turn it into a romantic getaway with his girlfriend. He immediately got defensive and complained that my mother always gets treated like that important parent while he feels awkward and out of place. I told him my graduation was not supposed to be about managing his discomfort. I said I wanted one major life event where my mother was not expected to quietly absorb everyone else's emotions and fix problems she did not create. He asked whether Melanie was officially unwelcome. I told him yes, she was not invited to stay with us or attend the family parts of the trip. He responded by saying maybe he should just stay home then. I told him that was his choice, but I was not removing my brother or grandmother from the trip to make room for someone I barely know, and I was absolutely not asking my mother to host his girlfriend after already paying for most of the trip herself. Now my aunt says I embarrassed him and made his girlfriend feel rejected. My father sent me a text saying he hopes making my point was worth it. Meanwhile, my mother keeps saying she supports my decision, but I can tell she feels guilty and uncomfortable about the whole thing. At this point, I genuinely do not know whether I handled this fairly or whether I let years of resentment toward my father spill into this situation. Would you refuse a trip because your friend fears everything? A few months ago, one of my close friends, Maya, started talking non-stop about taking a road trip to see the Red Rock Parks in northern Arizona. I have wanted to go there for years, so she assumed I would immediately say yes when she invited me. Instead, I told her I was going to pass. She looked genuinely shocked and kept pushing for an explanation. At first, I blamed finances because it felt easier than being honest, but she immediately called me out and said she knew that was not the real reason. The truth is that traveling with her has become exhausting because she is terrified of almost everything. She is 25 years old, but she refuses to fly unless someone she knows is sitting beside her the entire time. She panics about taking rideshares alone, constantly asks friends to share live locations, and acts like every stranger is seconds away from attacking her. I understand being careful, especially as a woman, but with her it goes far beyond normal caution. Every outing turns into managing her anxiety. One time we were eating at a cafe with a group of friends, and she insisted we leave halfway through because she thought a man across the room was staring at her in a threatening way. In reality, he just looked irritated because our table was being loud. Situations like that happen constantly. I've gently suggested therapy before because it honestly seems like she lives in a constant state of fear, but she completely rejects the idea and says everyone else is too trusting. When she kept demanding the real reason I would not go on the trip, I finally told her that traveling with her stresses me out because she seems scared of the world all the time. I tried to say it kindly, but she still got really hurt. Then she asked if I would take the same trip with someone else, and I admitted that yes, I probably would. That started a huge argument. Since then she has ignored all of my messages, and now I feel guilty wondering if I was too harsh. At the same time, I do not think I should have to spend an entire vacation calming someone down every few hours because they think danger is everywhere.